scoot up or something. You look kind of up in the distance.
I look smaller. It's okay.
Well, welcome, guys, to the Scoop. What number was it? 7?
Yeah,
I think it was 7, you guys. We're like becoming big time now. All right, so today I'm Farah.
I'm Nicole.
Carmen.
This is Carmen. So we're going to have Carmen be our guest speaker today, kind of like we did with Liz before about the history of ABA and kind of some of the things that, you know, have not been so great about that. But this is a whole different one. This is a very positive, life-changing conversation about compassionate communication and reflective practice. It started back mainly in education. There's a lot of research, and of course I didn't bring my research articles.
That's okay.
They're sitting in my seat in my car, so I apologize about that. Maybe I'll take a screenshot of that and post that on one of our thumbnail on the front, so you guys can have that as reference. But we do have some literature here. This is a real simple one. It says Summary and Insight of Nonviolent Communication, a Language of Life. And this is by Rosenberg. And this is a copy, so don't get mad at us. But this is what it looks like. It's just a little book like that. It's really simple. If you are interested in hearing more about this, it really kind of simplifies things down and makes it more manageable. Because
If you don't want to read the big book, which
Mhm.
started our journey.
And we've referenced that a bunch of times. In the first beginning podcast, I think 1, 2, and maybe even 3, we talked a little bit about that. So that's a great book. Very simple read too. It's just
And
a little
it's
bit
$10
more.
on Amazon.
Oh, it's only $10.
Yes.
Oh, that's nice. That's really nice. So we wanted to welcome Carmen. I'm excited to hear her story. This has been a journey since 2020. Do you want me to start with like kind of how it began and the history of that?
Mhm.
I don't think we've talked
I don't
about
think
it
we have.
in the past. So hopefully I'm not boring you too much. But anyways, 2020 came. Everybody knows about 2020. And then we had a lot of, was it April? That was the unrest and all of that stuff. Was that April or May?
We shut down in like March. Are you talking about shutting
But
down?
I'm talking about like the unrest with
Oh.
George Floyd and all of that.
More like June.
Was that June?
Yeah.
Okay. You think I would know this. But okay, so when that happened in 2020, that kind of catapulted a bunch of events that happened. And really, it was something that we, obviously the whole country was feeling and going through. And we reached out to a mentor, ended up being our mentor and still is our mentors, Scott and Nasia. Nasia meets with us. I've talked about her before. She's also in our documentary. We meet with her every other week. So that's what kind of this came from, is this nonviolent communication. And from our conversations that I had with her from the beginning of that time, and it kind of evolved into a bunch of what we're about to talk about and what we've kind of been talking about throughout our podcasts here and there. But this is going to be more of a dive deep. But what's great about compassionate communication or nonviolent communication, it's interchangeable, is just that it really, for me, takes out, do you want to look through this or no? Okay, you got it. I have to have a little bit of a visual to kind of.
It's a work in progress.
Yeah. It just really is something that you have to really work on in your life. And this is what Carmen will describe in a little bit and kind of talk about. And what we're training our staff on is to really observe without, what am I trying to say?
Observe without evaluation or judgment.
Yes. I think that's the number one thing, and we're still learning that. We're still reminding each other of that. And that goes for my personal life, with my kids, with work. We constantly take one opinion, 2 opinion, a couple people, and we're like, everybody, or always.
Those are the main words they say.
Yes.
Try not to use when you're describing something, everybody or all the time, because it's general.
And we still do it. And we have to remind each other, like, okay, was it one person that said that, or was it 2, or was it? And not to say that 1 or 2 people can't make it a big deal and kind of spread like a virus, so to speak. But really, we have to check ourselves of what really is going on in that observation, and we call it like the data collection of what really is happening. We have literally gotten things wrong completely based off of what we felt or what we thought. I can think of a very specific one with Liz that we were sitting there. I can't remember exactly what it was about. I think it was emergency leave. But we literally based our conversation off in one of our meetings. And then Liz went and looked at the data and brought it back. She goes, you're not going to believe this. It's the exact opposite of what we talked about.
So it's like a waste of time.
It was a total waste of time. And so that's the one thing I would say that is like the beginning steps of really make sure that you're really knowing, and it's really the data, it's really what's happening, and you're not going off of, Nicole, I always think of you, of the story of what you tell yourself. So if somebody says, for example, everybody's upset because, what's an example I can think of? Everybody's upset because, I don't know.
You change the PTO policy.
You change the PTO policy, right. And then you're like, oh my gosh, and then you start telling yourself a story.
Mm-hmm.
So was it this? We said this, we did this, and then you have this whole thing that you go down, and it was one person or two people. And you're not going to make everybody happy. And not to say that you can't evaluate or, bring it back, look at the data, look at what we need to do or not do, but start there, right? Mm-hmm. So, but anyway, back to the 2020 with all of those very difficult conversations. This was a really therapeutic piece for me. I know it was for you, and that's what Carmen will go into, is to get through and have those really difficult conversations that we have had over and over and over again, with, all of the tough, injustice conversations, or this isn't fair, or this is happening. How do we, direct this? Or you're Black, I'm white. What do we do because you don't understand me? I mean, I would have never said something like that before. You know what I mean? Before 2020, we just have these raw, straightforward conversations, and it's okay to not get it right, but just having these straightforward conversations. So anyway, that's where that came from, is some of these conversations that nobody wants to have that we just dive, kind of into. You want to add anything with that particular stuff? That's kind of the history of where we started with Nasia and bringing this up, because she was an educator and they did this in their curriculum, and how it came back up in 2020, and now 2021, 22, 23, and how far we've come within that. Do you think you add with that?
No, I mean, I think that's where it all began, and each one of us has a different kind of learning history on that, and how we've also used it within our personal lives, because I think in order to live this model, you have to connect it to something that is personal to you. You have to have that buy-in, I guess. I think each one of us did that in different ways.
And still do.
So yeah,
I think
so personally,
when
the book was introduced, Farrah came in with a bunch of copies, and they're like, I want all the supervisors to read this, and my first thought was oh God, serious?
Here we go.
But I started reading it, and I actually wrote down, it's page 102. It's page 102 that really hit me. And this was after you go through the 4 components: observation, feelings, needs, requests, and you get to receiving empathy. And so you've gone through 7 chapters, and I get to this one part. And I am a tougher mom. I grew up very, with discipline, and I raised my kids with discipline. So when I got to that section and was talking about a mom that constantly yelled at our kids, I literally felt like somebody just hit me in my stomach. And I had this gut, nasty feeling about myself, about how I talked to my kids, and that's what really hit me. And like you said, that connection. And if you think about it, we all grew up, I'm bilingual, so it doesn't matter what language you grow up or what country, you grow up with this mindset of you have to do this, or, there's certain things, and it's not. And this book really makes you look at the way you not only empathetically listen to other people, but also how you treat yourself. I think that's a big one too. Just a quote from Marshall, one of my favorite quotes is, NVC is used to connect with other people and ourselves that allows compassionate giving. not out of duty or obligation, not out of fear or punishment or hope for a reward, not out of guilt or shame, but for what I consider part of our nature. It is our nature to enjoy giving to one another. So that's like a favorite quote that I like from Rosenberg, and it really ties it back to not only the way you treat others, but yourself too. I think my biggest take was the way I see my actions based on other people's words. I think that's the biggest one. Personally, how it helped me, my marriage, definitely learned how to communicate better. We were married almost 18 years, and there was such a lack of communication. It was yelling at each other,
Yeah.
you haven't done this, you didn't do that, and that's where it helped me connect. Now we can discuss. I don't react to his words, and he tries not to, and he hasn't read the book, but I'm trying to teach him. So that's the great part. But like you said, this isn't something that you can just grab a book, read it, and be like, oh, I've read the book, I'm good. It's not.
It's so not.
3 years later, and I still find myself with my son. I mean, that's one that I have to constantly think about how to react. I have to stop myself because I automatically it's something like it clicks. And I forget NBC, and I'm like,
Yeah.
But it takes a lot, and it's a constant. Let's see. I wanted to give just a little bit more definition of the 4 components. So the first one's that observation without evaluation or judging, really looking at what is happening, and I tie that back to ABA.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's all based on what you're observing. You're not putting your feelings or your biases of how. A good example of it before I started working here. As I mentioned, I was that strict mom. So when I'd walk into Walmart, my kids were not going to misbehave because they knew better. But if I'd see somebody like, oh, bad kid, or oh, they're not doing good parenting. Once you start learning, really even ABA, but more into the NVC, you stop judging. Now you have a different mindset. You're like, I don't know what that's happening with that kid. I don't know what that parent's going through.
Such a good example.
So it makes you really change the way you look outward and inward. The second part is identifying feelings. And I think this is where a lot of people, based on how we grew up, we don't really differentiate feelings versus thought. Another good example is, oh, I feel like I didn't get a fair deal. That's always brought up with NBC. It's really not a feeling. It's a thought, differentiating that. Because again, growing up, you're not really taught to figure out your feelings, to really express them either.
So is that the story?
Yeah, it's part of the story that you kind of tell yourself. It plays into feelings and needs, those 2 components together. So something happened in your past life, and then you create all these other these thoughts about it, and that trickles into your present, right? And can affect your future. But if you go look back at that defining moment and just look at it observationally, you'll realize that all the story is not there anymore, essentially.
Yeah, it's really crazy when you really do that, because you really do make this whole thing up, and I'm like, is that really what's happening?
Well, and it could be even the smallest little thing. I mean, think about it. I personally, I hate cooking, and you say, I have to go home and cook. Well, it's something that from the past you've just learned how to do that. But if you stop and you kind of break it down, well, why are you going home to cook? Because I want to take care of my kids. I want to do this for them. So you're bringing the I want to and finding why you actually started doing something in the first place, and remembering those values instead of being like, I have to do this. I need to do this.
I gotta remember that.
Or I should.
Should. That's a word I'm trying to get out of my vocabulary. The third part is identifying your needs. Figuring out what those needs are and being able to express them, And then the 4th component is your requesting what would make you feel good, but you can't make it a demand, or you can't feel negative. It has to be a realistic request, not a demand, not And if the answer is no, you kind of have to accept that too. Not
So interesting. Because I keep, I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot about that part.
There's so many things. I read the book and I'm going through it again now, and they're like, oh, I forgot about this. Oh yeah, about that. So there's always something that you're learning.
100%, for sure. That's why I think that beginning step is so important
Mhm.
because we still constantly have to remind each other, like, well, what really happened? Like, let's really look at it. Let's
Mhm.
really, you know what I mean? Instead of this is how I feel, this is how you feel, this is what, you know. So I think that's, you know, really important. We're doing some of these mentor groups too, which was, we'll get into reflective practice. And one of the people that I was with kept saying, but. And I was like, I challenge you, because I do it all the time. And I have to constantly be like, and, you know, because I'm like, why do you think that that's important or not important? And so we started to discuss that at the table at the staffing last week. And it was really interesting because then people were like, and, you know,
I still catch myself. I'll write an email and I'll write the but. And I'm like, delete. Okay. Think about how to rephrase that.
Yeah. So why is that important? The and versus the but. Can you guys explain that a little bit?
Because if you're saying, I really like how you brought in snacks today, but I didn't really, I don't want those snacks.
So it's like you're being negative. You're using
erases
the positive.
You just were like slap.
Yeah,
kind of a bit.
Yeah.
It's true though, because you know you yeah.
And think about it, you could say, thank you so much for bringing all that snacks. Next time, would you mind picking up this? You know, it makes you think of it. Yes, right? That request.
Yeah.
And the way it comes in, it feels different. It doesn't feel like, oh, I just got put down for something I tried to do.
Right.
You know, it kind of goes back to the way we talk to our kids. You have to do this. They tense up and you automatically react defensive.
So true. I gotta work on that. I gotta keep reminding myself. I'm like, all right.
I mean, Emmy, my daughter, laughs at me because with her, I think it's been the easiest, but she's the chill one of the family. But I'll stop myself mid-sentence and then I'll correct myself and she's laughing. She's like, NBC again, Mom.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah, because I catch myself and I'm like, okay, I have to try to do better. So I'll rephrase it. She just laughs.
It's so true though. But it's just ongoing. You just keep, it's just, one of the things we talked about too is I'm like, this is just something, what I would recommend is finding something, like you said, connection, something that's meaningful to you and apply this. Mm-hmm. If work is hard to do in a specific way, go home and do it with your husband, go do it with your sibling or something like that. So I think
strangers on the street.
Or anybody, yeah. But something that you connect with that is, you know, and so we'll see what happens. But that really helped me and you had recommended that, is to do it at home too, because then I found myself, it just was more of a connection and more of a motivation
and it makes you think about it all the time.
Yeah.
But even if you're doing that, if you stop for a little bit, not like me, I had to restart reading the book because I just stopped for so long because there's so many other things that were getting in the way personally, and I let that slide, and I noticed what a difference it was. Mm-hmm. And made me more tense, more irritated when I got home. It really did. Yeah. But letting go and being able, it does make a huge difference in communication.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree with that. So, and it's like, and that's probably how it will always be. It's just a constant, like, and again, that brings reflective practice. So, which is kind of all intertwined in this is, reflective practice is a big one that we're working with our staff right now of how to be an effective, reflective supervisor, essentially, leader. And so that we've really been working on that and just looking back. And what does that mean? I mean, what does that mean? Guys, you want to talk a little bit about reflective practice and kind of what that means?
Yeah, I mean, the first part is really like self-awareness, self-reflection, and then how that plays a role in your shared experience with others, your connection with other people, how you can get to maybe like a common ground. And within supervision, what I've found that it does is allow for a conversation to occur. So rather than me saying, okay, your goal was to convert within 24 hours. You didn't meet this goal. And then I just put 0 and we move on to the next goal. Rather than that, reflective practice kind of looks at, okay, well, like, how do you think you're doing with this? And why do you think that? And I can also put in like what maybe I would rate it or what we would, and we would look at that together versus me saying, hey, you're not doing this, so I need you to do this.
Yeah, I love it. It's great. It creates that back and forth conversation, which is what,
accountability for yourself.
that
Yeah.
too.
Yeah,
For
there's
sure.
a lot of accountability, and within like accountability and that like vulnerability as well of like, hey, I don't know how to do this, or I didn't do this.
Or what is that? What was I supposed to be doing? I
Yeah.
think some of that too.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
by being a reflective leader and being self-reflective in general, you can look at yourself and also look at other people and create a trusting relationship to be able to show the vulnerability and to be able to be like honest within there.
Mhm. And what did you find in the last week or so of doing that reflection on, the goals and things like that? What did you find were they hard on themselves, or were they,
Yeah, there was probably about 5 people that rated themselves lower, like at least another score down than I would have. And they were harder on themselves. But it opened up that door once again for us to be like, well, why did you score yourself that way? And like, why do you think that? And it also caused them to kind of self-reflect on like, oh, well, did I do this or did I not do this? And kind of like look back on that. And we were able to kind of come to the same score at the end of it after we like both did that reflection piece.
Love it. That's great. Yeah. So, I mean, that's how we are moving forward to start this kind of back and forth conversation and moving together more frequently. A lot of places, including us in the past, we would do every 6 months or every year. And then that was based off of really the last month or two or whatever, right? I mean, you pick something out, maybe.
I was really bad at that. So like we would look at goals like right before like the goal meeting. So if you're working on goals for 6 months and then like here's our meeting in December, I would look at them in like November and like, oh shoot, what is that?
Right.
But if we're both accountable for those goals, and we're both self-reflecting on like what that means, then it kind of forces you to like continuously like work on it.
Well, and we're meeting constantly here and there, so why not continue that conversation and have it be part of just a natural, relationship as we move forward, because then the hope would be that there would be more of a back and forth and the good thing is when somebody says, oh, I'm really excited to meet with you on Tuesday at this time because I have all this stuff to go over. That your relationship is, it's building steam and it's the back and forth because they're reaching out to you and they're, you know what I mean? So I think that's really good. That's what we really liked about the way of doing this. And I think moving forward, we just want to continue that. It's something that is just, again, more of a natural conversation going back and forth. That's one of the reasons why we are introducing more and more mentors, and we learn every day about that too, of like, what is a mentor? What can a mentor be? I mean, we just learned something. I mean, I think we were all silent on Tuesday or Monday. Was it Monday? Monday.
Yeah, I've never been asked to reflect on like what is a mentor.
And who could be?
Yeah, it took me a second. And the difference between supervisor versus mentor too, which is what we did on Tuesday morning and kind of looked at that. It was interesting.
It was. I mean,
It's not something you always
I think we were all silent.
It made me really think. And on Tuesday, it helped me because realistically, I mean, you and Marie were my mentors because that's who I went to, and I still do. So that was very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, so what we're talking about is we met on Monday, and the mentors, what kind of the conversation from Nasia, she's, she's personally my mentor, of the conference that she went to, and she had learned like a mentor could be anybody, and we're always think of it as somebody that has a higher, I don't know, I think she said credential, but like it could be somebody that just it's really just more information or different information.
So it doesn't have to be like a clinical
Yes.
leader. It could be the secretary. It could be the janitor. It could be anyone that knows the insides of the company. It's still considered a mentor.
Yeah.
We never looked at it that way.
Which was cool because then Tuesday we had our group breakout. Nicole had set that up, and again in my group was another person that I had explained kind of what we had talked about on Monday, and I was thinking like to everybody, I think I had 4 in my group, including me. And one of them was like, well, actually, the person I'm learning a lot right now, yes, they're clinical, but that's not why. It's an area, it's an administrative task that I know nothing or very little about. And I really, like, she's kind of been my mentor. And so we kind of started a conversation. And then the other 2 in the conversation started talking about who their mentors were or have become. And so it was really interesting because I would have not facilitated that in that way if we wouldn't have had the Monday conversation.
Yeah.
So that really changed my way of thinking. And then as I look back, I'm like, duh, because I've learned so much from the mentors, that are techs, that I've only been in the field for 8 months, and I've learned a ton from them, so it makes sense, right? I mean, yes, they're still clinical, but I've been in the field for how long?
And you're learning from them.
And I'm still
and their
learning.
techs.
Yeah.
In my group, it was interesting because Sam was a tech when we did have originally the mentors. So she said she's so happy that we brought it back. And then there was, for all these questions, it was funny because the rest of the team were like, I wish we had one of the mentors in our group. And like another, I wish we had one of the mentors in our group because they wanted to get their perspective of it,
Yeah, it has been really fun. It's one of the things I look forward to every week because I know it's just going to be more information that I don't know or that I just don't have that access to like they do, so it's really interesting. But that's all reflective too, because we were all sitting there in our groups, and then we've had 3 meetings really about it in the last week, Wednesday, Monday, and Tuesday, and there's just been so much reflection because you're thinking back, like, oh, that's so true. Why didn't I look at it like that? Why didn't I think about it like that? So yeah, I mean, I think reflection is one of the best ways to learn because, and also it is very humbling and you really have to kind of tear down your walls and go, it's okay. You're not wrong to look back and say, what went well too. That's the thing I constantly want to say too, is like, don't forget about what went well. There's lots of things that are going well that if we change or shift or shape, we're going to lose what's going well. Mm-hmm. So make sure that we're looking at things about yourself or others or whatever, as we're moving forward, that we keep.
It's bringing that empathy too, because you have to look at the good, not just the bad. Sometimes we dwell on the negative so much that we forget to highlight the good.
Yeah.
Even as far as like saying feedback, because when you when we talked about feedback, it came up more like constructive feedback, but looking at feedback as like one of our like reflective practice pieces are like, well, why is your feedback not like 5-1? So 5 like positive things that are going really well or that person's doing, and then 1 like constructive piece that we can work on.
That's true.
And looking at that frame of mind.
A lot of comments on that, actually. Mm-hmm. Yeah. When we were in the group last week, I was like, what do you guys think about this part? And even one of our goal meetings I can think of, that person was like, oh, I don't even know if I try, but like you get so wrapped up in, I hate to say fixing, but that's what you do. You get wrapped up in like, what am I going to change? What am I going to fix? What am I going to blah, 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 blah. So and that to me, that brings me back to be present, be in the now, enjoy what's happening now. And I'm the worst for that because I'm always thinking about what has to be done. in every aspect. And that's how I have been reflecting a lot lately is with my kids. Because they're like, Mom, like, you're not even here. You're thinking about this, this, and that. And you're doing this, and you're running here, and you're doing this. And I'm like, yeah. And that stuff's always going to be there. Why am I doing this to myself? You know, I mean, that doesn't go away. And even when you think of clinically, when you're in work, yeah, you're going to always have stuff to do. But just enjoy the moment. Be with the kid or the adult or the person or the meeting or whatever, and just enjoy it and let that stuff go. Because that doesn't change it. It's still going to be there. You know, so that's one thing that I'm really working on for myself is just to be present. I don't know where that is in all of this. I can't remember. It is, right?
Yeah.
But that's something that I think has really helped me too, is just to stop, look around, and like enjoy. Because again, and I've been doing that with reflection, you know.
Yeah, ties back with your feelings and your needs.
There you go. See, Carmen, I'm learning right now again. So anyway, I don't know. Do you guys have anything else to add with that, or we're like, so how long did we go? See, where's the?
I do have a great resource. So one of the sites that really is awesome. It's called nbcacademy.com.
Oh.
And what's really great, if you sign up, you can sign up for free. Just create a thing, and they also have a study or a course that you could do in 30 days, and it's available for a whole year that you could access it. So you can take the whole year if you want, but it's called a 30-day course to learn NBC. And there's videos, there's readings. So it's really neat. So anybody that wants to join, they do have other options where you could buy, like you can pay a membership for the year to their library and stuff like that. But they constantly have free courses, free all kinds of stuff. So definitely
Thank you
great
for sharing
resource.
that. That's great. Yeah. Is that what you've been sharing too?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And a lot of the things that I get from there, they have great like little printouts and all kind of stuff
So that's what Carmen's been doing in our newsletters, is sharing each week. We have a weekly newsletter, and she shares some of that information. And I have to say, like we pulled data on that, and what was the data that people are reading the newsletters?
Oh gosh, I don't remember.
I don't know, but it was high. Like
It was
shocked.
higher than we expected.
It's going up. So when we first started that newsletter, I mean, I think we used to get like 10 people to click on it.
Yeah.
And now it's quite a lot.
It was high.
Yeah.
I would be lying if I had the exact number. But we were all like, what? Oh, we'll take it. Yeah. So, I mean, I think a part of all of that is just looking at what people want, what they're looking for. And I think that's a big piece as people look. I mean, it's just a great newsletter, to be honest with you.
Got a little bias there.
Yeah. But that's in there. And so I think that's really cool. And I just am excited to keep growing and learning and keep, telling each other, remember that, and just, again, looking back to the basics, I think is always going to be what we're going to want to do and what we would recommend. And so if you want anything else, let us know. If you want more information, I'm sure we'll be continually talking about this. Thanks, Carmen, for joining us.
Thank you.
That was fun. You did great. It was great. So thanks, guys. We'll see you later. Bye.